Okay, this particular Vetrano 2B, when it arrived, the coffee boiler would not heat. Now, I've removed the panels and now I'm inspecting the wiring. I'm going to check the high limits. There are two high limits. This is the high limit for the steam boiler. It's got a free floating button, which means the button is not attached to anything. It pushes against a thin piece of metal. If the set temperature, if the boiler ever exceeds the set temperature of the high limit, this will trip. That piece of metal in there will change shape. When you press the button, sometimes you can feel it click, sometimes you can't. But the fact that you pressed it, as long as it's in working order, it is reset. This is the one on the steam boiler. Down here is the one down the coffee boiler. And looky, I found the problem why this wasn't heating. In shipping, a wire came loose from the high limit, so the high limit is not hooked up, which interrupts the power flow to the element. So plugging this wire back in, I'm going to check and make sure the high limit's not tripped. It's not tripped. I hit the reset, and then I plug the wire back in, and that resolves that issue. I will be testing here shortly. I do not have to put the machine fully back together to test it. I will be hooking this back up to the receptacle for the reservoir and setting this back in place, set the reservoir in place, and I will be firing it with it open. That way I don't need to take it apart back again if I find further issues. A couple of the things notable that's worth noting on this machine: anytime you ship it, it needs to be drained. So to show you the bottom of the machine, I am going to unplug this so I can remove the tray, move it aside. Maybe I'll be unplugging it. I got this little zip tie that's in the way. Zip ties can be removed and put back afterwards. Being careful not to cut the wires. All right, so each one of these boilers have a drain on it. They're normally located on the bottom. I'm going to tip it forward onto the group head. Got to move the joystick in one direction so it's not hitting the joystick. Okay, to access the drains on it, we will need to remove this bottom panel. I am using a 7mm socket. And we have these two drain valves. And they're little thumb screws. You twist them loose. You can put a pair of pliers on them if you need to loosen them up. These are really tight, so I will be using my pair of pliers to loosen them up. But before I do that, I am going to move it towards the sink. So when I dump it, I'm going to dump it into the sink, or I'm going to put a pan or something underneath of it to catch the water. And drain it. Now, due through the magic of editing, you're not going to see me struggle to take that out, but there's the second one now. We're going to tip it upright. We're going to let the water run out. We're going to lift up the brew handle. We're going to make sure the valves are open so that this machine can drain in the sink. Now, it is very important to drain your machine before shipping the machine in. Not draining it, you risk water damage to it if it leaks on the computer, the board on it. In the wintertime, if it's not climate controlled, it could freeze. Freezing can crack the boiler, burst the plumbing, blow out your gauges, cause your pump to seize. None of that would be covered under warranty. So very important to drain your machines before you ship them in. And there you are. Once the water stops running out, put your drain plugs back in, put your shell back on, and now you're ready to package it up to ship it to us. Now, while I have this apart, I want to go over a few other things. It's still draining a little bit. Basic locations of stuff on the machine. We went over high limits. This is your fill probe. This is your inlet solenoid. This is your combo valve, your combination vacuum breaker, OPV. This is your PID. Down here you have your motor and your pump. Here are your power relays. And here is your board underneath this cover. So there's your basic components of finding stuff on your machine. Any questions, don't hesitate to give us a call.